We're with Sean Mcglynn, city manager of our fair city of Santa Rosa. Hello, sir. Welcome.
Hi. How you doing?
Oh, good, man. So, how does one get into the city management business?
Well, it's an interesting journey. I think there's a lot of programs out there that are career track you into sort of a public policy or public administration path. So you can go to school, you can do the internship route, you can set out a career, and I don't know a lot of folks that set out with their life work and saying, what I really want to do is manage a city. But my path was a little bit different. I didn't get involved into public service until into my 30s.
Wow.
I started off.
So it's been 2 weeks?
Yeah, basically. So I started off working in the not-for-profit sector.
Oh, interesting.
I was working in New York City for the New York City Opera, actually, doing arts education work in the schools. 9/11 happened. My wife and I were both in Manhattan at the time.
Wow.
We were separated for about an hour. We didn't know where each other were. The cell system had collapsed, but we had one of the good news stories in that day is that we were able to get reunited.
That's great. Wow.
And after that, I sort of asked myself, do I feel like I'm doing enough? Do I feel like I could give more to the community I'm in, which was at the time New York City?
Right.
And I said, yeah, I could. And then it became a sort of how to do that. And at about the same time, Michael Bloomberg was elected mayor of New York City. And he put out a call and said, look, I'm looking for folks that are interested, that may not have considered work in the public sector before, to come work for the city of New York.
Wow.
And I did the thing that not everybody does, which is apply off the street for a job in a sector that I was familiar with, which was arts and culture.
Right.
And I got hired to help manage relationship with 34 city-owned institutions. The city of New York is the largest single investor of arts and culture in the country.
Yeah.
About $150 million, larger most years than the National Endowment for the Arts, actually. So it's a larger investment than the federal government does in arts and culture. But it was an exciting, eye-opening experience for me.
Yeah, that is exciting. Are you familiar with Kristen Madsen from?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Creative Sonoma. Yeah, Kristen and I have talked a couple of times. We're looking to figure out here how we can collaborate together between the city and the county, especially as it relates to arts, culture, and all kinds of creative endeavors.
Arts, culture, and maybe commerce?
Well, I think they intersect. I mean, I think you can it's a creative economy. It's there's a lot to be said that when you get a creative economy, you get really a foundation that attracts people, attracts innovation. That's sort of the Bay Area in a nutshell. Is the creative economy, and frankly, that's someplace that. As a city, we need to do a better job. We're doing a phenomenal job around tourism and the service industries.
Absolutely, yeah.
But we got to be a job attractor for the creative sector, everything from tech to arts and culture.
And it seems to be heading that way culturally here. I mean, just in the last few years, I've seen a distinct change in sort of the appreciation of it.
Well, I think the Bay Area in itself is a natural attractor. I think Sonoma County has always been. I think, we just finished art trails, another successful art trails experience throughout the county for the last 2 weekends in October.
Yeah.
And but I think there's other opportunities that we're looking at how we partner, how we bring artists into maybe some conversations they haven't been before. And so it's exciting. It's an exciting period.
It is a good time for Santa Rosa, that is for sure. But before there was Santa Rosa, there was El Paso for you. How did you go from, what sounds like a dream job in New York, frankly, and then El Paso?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Not to knock El Paso, I'm just saying.
I kind of joke that way myself, so I'm starting on a path, New York City, and then the next stop is El Paso. But, that was a really interesting community. And the reason my wife and I decided to relocate to El Paso was it was an opportunity not just for me, but also for her.
Right.
And she's an actor, and she just finished a movie that she was in just got finished releasing, and she was in Albuquerque last year for 30 days shooting a movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Oh, right
so she, in New York, it is very difficult to sometimes find the time to pursue your creative endeavor.
Yeah.
I think actually in New York, the statistic is that New York is the #1 attractor place for artists, right. But also that's what they lose as many artists as they gain every year, because it's just really can be really difficult.
And it's hard to break through.
And we had to actually move away from directly involved in our creative careers. She was consulting fundraising for theaters and institutions of higher learning. She worked early on the 9/11 Memorial Project in Lower Manhattan, and so she was there, and it was creative and it was fun, but it wasn't acting.
Right.
And so by relocating to El Paso, it presented her with a career opportunity, and also presented me with a career opportunity. And we had just started a family, so I went there and I headed up the arts and culture program for the city of El Paso.
So it aligns with your.
Then I moved into city management after that while I was there.
I could see how that's almost sort of an organic evolution actually at that point.
Well, it is, and I think the what's really exciting is when you're a generalist, you get a lot of freedom to ask questions.
That's jack of all trades.
Yeah. I'm not a technician. I'm not an engineer or I didn't have an upbringing in a very particular area of endeavor. Mm-hmm. So in a way, it gives you a freedom when you're sitting down and you're asking people. You're actually learning, and that's what I find really exciting. Every day that I'm on the job, I learn something new, and that's what always keeps you interested, motivated, excited. How do I help people be as successful as they can, and the place I'm working for be as successful as I can?
Do you feel like that being city manager versus having worked as directly in the arts as you have is it a little more square? Is it like not as cool?
Well, the arts are exciting. Yeah. Creative industry is exciting.
I'm not saying you're a square.
Well, yeah, you are. But it is. I mean, it's a different endeavor. Yeah. But I think, there are things that I learned being an artist and being a collaborator in the creative sector that have positioned me well. And one of the things is being a listener. I mean, when you're working in the theater, you're dealing with a bunch of different designers with their own particular perspectives. You're dealing with actors, and often the theater is the actor's art. Right. So you're trying to help them more than you're actually trying to do stuff yourself, and so that you become a facilitator of a story, and I think that is a skill that transfers itself to leadership in other areas.
Pretty direct analogy, yeah. Hey, we're with Sean Mcglynn, city manager of the city of Santa Rosa, and we'll be right back. That's a really good point. It really is.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
We're with Sean Mcglynn, the city manager of the city of Santa Rosa. We were just talking about how having a theater background, and in your case, directing for some time, has primed you in many ways, for the job you do now as city manager, because you are facilitating the excellence of many people simultaneously. Directing, city management. I mean, I'm sure you don't prefer one or the other at this point, but what was it about directing that really appealed to you? Why did you start?
I think, what was interesting.
It was theatrical.
Yeah, it was theatrical directing. What was really interesting to me was the ability to tell a story, and that's one of those primal urges that I think human beings have is storytelling, listening to a good story, finding where you connect with a good story. And that's what's always attracted me to that endeavor. And and in a way, it's also facilitation and really, as I said earlier, helping people get to success. And that's what I think is really fun and collaborative in that art form. It is about us sharing with somebody, them responding to it, and there's nothing that matches, quite frankly, the journey that an audience goes through in the live theater.
Right.
And it is something that occasionally, I do miss experiencing that.
If you get city council, that's
Well, that was I think it was a couple of the comments in the Press Democrat. Oh, he should be well versed for high drama in the council chamber.
Well, speaking of drama, the drama that is Santa Rosa presently. What is the biggest problem you're facing?
Well, I think
the city's facing.
I think the council's wrestling with some really interesting and challenging opportunities, and two of the biggest ones are our housing situation, which is not just Santa Rosa; it's the entire Bay Area.
Right.
We currently have a vacancy rate on the rental market of about 1.5%.
Wow.
Which means there's no inventory.
Right.
And associated with not being in inventory, there's a series of challenges that come out of that, and which directly impact the second issue, which is the homeless issue.
Right.
That we're wrestling with, not just as a city, but as a county as a whole. And when you don't have inventory, it becomes difficult to place people into housing. And one of the ways that you try to address homelessness is to give people that first step, which is housing. And that's the key and critical component to them getting back on track in their life. And so when you don't have the space to put them, it can be really challenging as you struggle to try to build those things. And we're coming out of a really tough marketplace after 2008, where building pretty much stopped for a period of time. And we're starting to see it come back, but it always, those projects, from somebody starting a process to finishing a process, especially in rental or multifamily homes, can take 2-3 years for the process to work itself out.
And another issue, and I'm sort of part of this problem in part, I've seen this in Petaluma at least, not necessarily Santa Rosa specifically, but there's a lot of migration from San Francisco and from Oakland of knowledge workers and stuff coming to these towns, and the rents go up around them because to them it's cheaper than the city.
Absolutely.
And you have this sort of, I wouldn't call it gentrification necessarily, but definitely a rise in rents has happened in Petaluma.
Well, and that's what we're trying to understand. I mean, right now, the council is going through a series of questions about what exactly is happening out there. We assume a lot of knowledge base, and some of that's experiential, and there's probably truth in that experience. But we're trying to help council and help ourselves, actually, as city staff, better understand what's actually happening out there. Because, when the SMART train runs more frequently, there may be even more demand for folks and more opportunity for folks to look at Santa Rosa as a place to live and a place to work. And so how are we going to support that expanded demand as it comes online? And that train's supposed to start running in just about a year.
And so, I mean, I guess one of the fears is the possibility of displacement of people's, like middle class, lower class income households that won't be able to afford to live in their town.
Well, and that's always a
Right.
threat. I mean, I think that's something once again, an issue that we're not just wrestling with, the entire Bay Area is wrestling with.
Yeah, it's not a Santa Rosa problem necessarily.
It's our problem to wrestle with, but we're not alone in that issue. And so I think what the council's trying to do is get educated, get better informed, and try to make the best decisions to help address those two issues.
So how does it work between you and council, or city management and council?
Well, sometimes folks can, one of the easier way folks can sort of figure this out is sort of how a not-for-profit structures, and works is there's usually a board. The board oversees sort of policy, general direction, provides some oversight, fiscal and oversight of the CEO. And in a way that's the position that I sit in, is I'm responsible to them. This council has 2 employees. It has myself and the city attorney. They hire and fire those folks. I work with everybody else in the organization. So operations basically reports to the city manager.
Okay.
So they set policy. I implement the policy and try to make the best decisions on a day-to-day how to run the organization, so that we're striving for excellence, we're achieving the goals the community wants us to achieve and council set out for us, and that we're delivering it with the best possible customer service that we can.
But it's not like you only get directives from city council and act on those. Do you try to influence city council when you think there's an issue?
Well, actually, I work for city council. So
technically, yes.
So council sets the goals for the city manager. But that's you know, it's
nuanced.
Well, it's nuanced in that there's 7 of them. So it's often them coming into consensus on where they want the direction of the city to go. And so that is a task where sometimes you do have to work with them to educate them, let them know where the pluses and minuses of every decision are. But I still have a responsibility to make sure that the organization is well run, that it's a good place to work, and that we're maintaining fiscal responsibility as we do it too. And so those are the tasks, the dividing lines. But it is different. Most people work for one person, or you don't usually work for 7 that pretty much have to do all of their planning and decision making in public.
I can totally relate. I report to a board myself, and consensus sometimes can be a hard one. And I find it, honestly, sometimes frustrating.
Yeah.
Is it frustrating to you?
Well, I actually think that's what makes it interesting to me. Is that
you have a higher threshold to tolerance.
Well, yeah, that's not to say it's not challenging at times, but it is that that's what makes you actually make sure you're doing the best job you possibly can. I think in a way, when you have to really work with 7 individuals who can have very divergent views on where we're going, it makes you question your own decision making and really make sure you're on point and you're understanding what's going on, because you realize you're going to report to 7 different bosses. You just don't have to convince one.
Right.
You sometimes are going to have to convince at least 4.
Right, majority. We're with Sean Mcglynn, the city manager of the city of Santa Rosa. We'll be right back.
Can you help me with this? My new dad teaches me all kinds of stuff.
Sure.
He helps me with homework.
That would be 3.6795.
Thanks.
Yep.
He helps me with my decision making.
I wouldn't use this one. Ever.
And he's even teaching me how to drive.
And that's why cars have bumpers.
I'm learning so much.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are.
And we're back with Sean Mcglynn, the city manager of the city of Santa Rosa. We were just talking about how people often don't understand what a city manager is versus a mayor.
Yes.
Mayor who is voted for, a city manager who's hired by the council. So people, you mentioned that somebody thought they had voted for you.
Yeah, it's not unusual that experience is wide ranging. About 2/3 of the country works under city management form of government, but that means that another third is usually working in some other, and most of the time that's strong mayor.
Right.
And that's what Hollywood focuses on. That's typically the stories coming out of the big cities, is that the mayor is elected and the mayor sets policy, and sometimes drags the councils that they're working with kicking and screaming to that policy decision. And generally there's some kind of administrator who's helping the mayor, but generally the mayor's making all the decisions.
Right.
And so what happens frequently is they confuse those 2 roles, and I had an instance just a couple of weeks ago where someone said, well, I voted for you, and I had to say, well, actually you didn't vote for me. And that can be a little confusing, because folks, they're in a representative democracy and they voted for the mayor, and sometimes we have to have that conversation. Well, the mayor is one of 7 council members. He or she does have certain privileges with the office, and sometimes I would say probably the mayor goes, well, that may be a privilege or maybe not be a privilege.
Right. But he's been here. Yeah.
But the mayor does have certain responsibilities and roles, but again, they have to, that doesn't usurp the council's authority. But in El Paso, the mayor there actually had veto ability.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
you put a gun on the table.
But the mayor didn't vote unless there was there was 8 council members, and the mayor only voted in the case of a tie. So the mayors ran the meeting, sort of like here, but would vote only when it was 4-4, and then had the ability, even if the council had passed a measure, to consider a veto. Then would come back to council, and they could overturn the mayor's veto with a supermajority. So these nuances are very, very different from community to community. So I started in New York, which was strong mayor, moved to a community that had a city manager, but a different compact with its mayor, because the mayor was elected at large, and then here in Santa Rosa, the mayor is selected by the council members.
That's right.
To fill the obligation.
Yeah. So, if you're going to tell a story of Santa Rosa, if you were to direct the 5-act thriller that is that is the story of Santa Rosa at present, where are we going? What is it?
Well, I think what's really exciting is there's so much opportunity here. I mean, I think with the smart train coming, with potential where we could be recruiting head of household jobs to assist us, where I think there's the future really in helping us address our housing and other opportunities, and just in terms of where we can go with quality of life questions. It's really, really exciting time to be the city manager here, and I'm really lucky to work with a council that's looking at the future, not just concerned about the immediate issues, but is also trying to look at the future of where we're going to go as a community.
How long has it been for you now? Like a year and a half?
It's just over a year.
Yeah,
it's just over a year. But it's been a year last September.
The tone of city government has definitely changed since you've been there, and I think for the better. It's definitely a lighter, more positive atmosphere.
Well, and I think that I don't want to say that was just me. I think that the staff was craving some change. I think that council has changed itself, and in addition, you can't discount how positive economic news, even if that economic news can be challenging for many segments of our population, still when you have resources to start to do things and start to address issues, that you can't replace that opportunity. But we have other things coming, as I said, that I think are going to really support having a really well-rounded, dynamic community and getting us to address some of the issues that we're facing. The council moved on Courthouse Square recently, so we're going to be moving towards reunifying that square. We're also looking at how we can support that smart train when it lands in about a year. And what we're hearing is that it's going to be a commuter system in a lot of ways, which will help us hopefully with even things like our greenhouse gas projections, and where we're trying to meet goals as a community around that.
It's great. It's great that you guys are actually thinking about that too, thinking 10, 15, 20 years in the future.
And I think that's the most challenging thing about the job. When you're in leadership at the city, trying to make sure you're getting immediate issues addressed, those intermediary concerns for the community, but still keeping an eye on where we're going long term. And that can be one of the most difficult balancing acts to do, because obviously when you have an immediate concern, you need to address it right away. But you still need to keep your eye on where you're going.
So in terms of your long-term experience here in Santa Rosa, you've acclimated to the wine country lifestyle, I would hope at this point.
Not too difficult.
What are you guys doing now? I mean, is your wife acting?
She is. I mean, she as I said, she just
wrapped the film.
Just wrapped the film, and she's auditioning, but it's also a great place for my son, and he's acclimatizing to a new school, new friends.
He'd only ever been a Texan.
Well, he was briefly a New Yorker, but that was literally a matter of about 8 months, and now he was a Texan, and I'd like to joke he was becoming a Cowboys fan, so that was the real reason I moved.
What do you do? Like this is like the sort of human interest portion of the interview. Like what do you do for hobbies? What's your sort of?
Well, I love to get involved with things that are creative. I love to go out and explore Sonoma County and explore the city and find opportunities that I hadn't known, and that's the exciting thing. There's always something new to discover in this town and in the county. And spending time with my kid, and right now it's at an age where you're getting to see the world through his eyes.
How old is he?
He's 7.5.
Mine's 6. So
that half, the half is really important. So there's an excitement. When you're a parent, that becomes one of your focuses. You really get to re-see the world again, and that's always exciting.
That's true. I moved here from Oakland after not being here for like about 20 years, and at least at Petaluma where I live now, and it just was. It's a different place, but seeing it for the first time that way, it's such how lucky are we?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Of the discoveries you've made, any particular favorites right now?
That's dangerous territory. But I think what's so so great is, as the slogan goes, we're right in the middle of everything, and you get so many choices to have. I would say, the thing that I'm most excited about is I get to discover a great place, and every weekend is a discovery for me.
Any local theater? Do you go to local theater?
Well, so that's interesting. That's the one place that I haven't had time to carve out of my schedule to do enough of that. So, you ventured into the Cannery, but still need to take in Transcendence, still need to take in some folks down in South A Street and some other opportunities, but we're going to get there.
I see a post-career next step here, right?
Yeah.
That'd be cool. All right, we're with Sean Mcglynn, the city manager of the city of Santa Rosa. Thank you, sir, for being on. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Taking the time.
Real pleasure.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.